Welcome, one and all, to Pacific414 episode review. I am your host, Mike, and in this episode, I am going to be reviewing episode 2 of Chucky. Give me something good to eat. Now, for those of you who joined me during the live watch party, yes, we did have some people that were saying it was not on, but remember, I am on the East Coast, so it was very much on the USA and SyFy networks. So let's get underway here. What we had tonight was Give Me Something Good to Eat, the second episode of Chucky. In this second episode of Chucky, it takes place around Halloween, and it also follows the aftermath of episode 1, Death by Misadventure. And in episode 2, we see a flashback to young Charles Lee Ray, excuse me, coming back from trick-or-treating. He's just dumped his candy, and amongst the items that were in his bag was an apple, and on that apple was a razor. Now, a lot of you know that when you go trick-or-treating, your parents always say, let them check the candy. Well, Chucky doesn't do that. Chucky takes a look at the apple, picks it up, and when he picks it up, he pricks his finger, and it begins to bleed. And he then proceeds to look at the razor and contemplates eating it for a little bit and brings it up to his mouth and then pulls it away from his mouth. And then Chucky decides, oh, heck, I'm going to eat it anyway. So he takes one big bite out of the apple, which causes his mouth to bleed due to the razor. And then we flash forward to present day where we see Jake Jr., his uncle, and his aunt, and they're back at the middle school. And Jake's uncle is telling him that he doesn't have to go back to school, but Jake wants to get back into school, get everything back up and running again, back up started after the death of his father. And of course, there's a conversation between Junior, Jake's uncle, Jake's aunt, and Jake. And of course, Jake's aunt even asks Jake if he even feels comfortable living with them, which Jake says he does. And Junior and Jake proceed to leave after Jake's uncle gives him some lunch money. So, we're in the school. We see Evan, and just like in last episode, Evan gives a podcast voiceover as to, what happened during Halloween in Hackensack. And we meet up with Junior and Lexi is basically she's being a bitch. No other way to say it. She's being a bitch and saying things about Jake and the fact that his dad died. And this does play into the episode later on. So we then flash forward to the Wheelers mansion where Jake is staying right now, and we meet the housemaid Anne, and she's going around doing her daily chores of cleaning the house. She comes up to Chucky, and she looks at him, then turns away, and a vase falls from this table that Chucky is sitting on. So she turns around, picks up the broken vase, puts it into a trash can, and upon close examination of Chucky, she sees a spot of blood. So she cleans it off, and then she proceeds into the kitchen where she opens the dishwasher. And inside the dishwasher, well, we see some knives. And who's coming fast behind her? Well, it's Chucky. He ends up killing her. So this involves Jake and Junior coming home after Anne's murdered. And Jake and Junior, they're still at odds. They're not the best of friends. They're not even the best of relatives. And they're talking. Jake even says to Junior, "Do you want an ice cream pop?" And Junior says, "No, and I don't need you to ask me in my own home if I want something. If I want something, Anne will get it for me. She's been making me popsicles since I was 6 years old." So Junior takes umbrage with his own cousin, just trying to be nice, when Jake and Junior discover Anne's dead body on top of the knives. Then Jake ends up going up to his room after 911 is called and the investigators come. Evan's mom, of course, is one of the investigators, as we saw in episode 1. And they start questioning both the boys, especially since there have been 2 deaths with Jake around in the same home. And, one of the things Evan's mom even mentions is that the boys weren't even home at the time. So, how do we know that they're the ones that killed Anne? So, Jake ends up going into his room, has a discussion with Chucky, asking him, "Did you kill the maid? Did you kill Anne?" And Chucky, of course, denies it, and he's reading one of Jake's books. And he even insults Jake, says, "You really got to improve your writing." He says a few other things about Jake, about his preferences, and mentions that he has a son who has those preferences. And of course, Chucky's just being Chucky, being a real asshole. So then it fast forwards to later on in the night, and Junior's getting ready for a Halloween party. Lexi's going to be there. Everybody from the middle school is going to be at this party. It's a party, and it's always thrown every year. So Junior comes down. He's dressed in a track uniform, wearing his father's track jacket. He's even got his father's medal around his neck. His father's really happy about it. His mom asks him, "Are you sure you want to go, considering what happened today?" And Junior says, "Yeah, I've got to go." And then Jake's uncle calls for Jake, and Jake doesn't come. And Junior ends up going out, getting into an Uber that he called, and taking off. Well, Jake eventually comes down, and Jake's uncle asks him, "Are you going to go to the party?" Jake says, "No, I'm not going to go to the party. I've got things I've got to do in my room." So he goes upstairs, then comes back because Chucky's no longer in the room, and he asks, "Did Junior take Chucky?" Of course, his aunt and uncle don't know what he's talking about. So we cut to the next scene where we see Chucky walking around the streets wearing a Hello Kitty mask. He goes up to one of the houses and says, "Trick or treat." He's even holding a bag. And this woman opens the door and says, "Aren't you a little young to be going around trick or treating by yourself?" And Chucky, he's snarky, says a few things. But in the end, Chucky does end up finding out where the party is that Jake's at, and he gives this lady a little souvenir, an apple, and that apple has a razor in it. And of course, Chucky ends up going to the party. When we see Junior, we see Evan. Jake eventually shows up. Lexi shows up. Lexi's little sister is there. And speaking of Lexi's little sister, there's a scene before the party where she's drawing a picture of Chucky, and it's drawn real well. And of course, Lexi's parents are on their way to their own Halloween party. So then what ends up happening is while at the party, Jake ends up showing up. And when he gets to the party, he asks for Lexi. And one of the girls says, "Why is everybody asking for Lexi?" Because when Junior got to the party, he asked for Lexi. Evan got to the party, he asked for Lexi. So Jake's running around looking for Lexi. He and Evan end up getting pushed into a closet, and on the closet it says "Hell Room" on it. They're in the room for 7 minutes. Meanwhile, we see a scene where Chucky and Alexi's little sister are playing a slasher game. And of course, Chuck is saying, oh, he's going to kill Lexi and he's going to do this, he's going to do that. And Lexi's little sister says, well, you shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't be cursing. You shouldn't be saying anything negative. And of course, Chucky says, well, your mom's just made the top of my list. So then we get to a scene where Lexi and Junior are inside the master bedroom. And Lexi's getting high. Lexi offers Junior a puff. Junior passes on it. And Lexi and Junior are having a conversation. They're first talking about Jake, talking about what a loser he is, especially in Lexi's mind. So we get to Jake and Evan getting out of the room, but unbeknownst to Jake and Evan, of course, Lexi and Junior, Chucky is now underneath the bed. He managed to sneak in there, and he's holding a butcher's knife. And he tries to cut through the mattress to no avail. He misses Lexi and Junior each time. And then it cuts to a scene where they're all out on the bottom floor, the first floor of the house. All the kids are dancing around. They're in a circle, and in the middle of the circle, we see Lexi dressed up as Jake's dad, and she's acting like she's being electrocuted. Of course, Jake sees it. Jake doesn't like it. And then Junior sees it, and he sees the expression on Jake's face and looks at Lexi. Of course, Lexi stops for a few moments, and then she starts shaking and vibrating all around, acting like she's getting electrocuted again. And then we cut to the room where Lexi's little sister is still playing video games, and Lexi's saying, okay, we got to go home now. And who should still be in the room? Well, that's Chucky. Chucky's there, and Lexi has her back to Chucky, and Chucky's just about to pull out the knife and stab her when he has to stop because Junior and Jake end up coming in. And of course, there's a confrontation between them. Jake doesn't like the fact that Lexi dressed up as his dad. Of course, Lexi doesn't care. She even calls him a Walmart boy. So we get that, and then we cut back to the Wheeler's house. And again, just like in episode 1, there's a conversation between Chucky and Jake, and Chucky is really egging Jake on, saying, "Oh, you want to kill her. We've got to get rid of her. We've got to do her in." And he pulls out the butcher knife and says, "Here, Jake, take the knife." And he keeps just egging him on, egging him on, egging him on. So eventually, it looks like Chucky may get his wish, and Jake may end up turning to the dark side and going after Lexi and actually killing her. But we'll have to see. This is 10 episodes of the series. We're only in 2 episodes so far, and next week is episode 3. And I don't know if I'm going to do another live watch party or not. I might. But just keep in mind that if I do a live watch party, I am on the East Coast, so I will be watching the episode live as it's happening. I am not in the Central Time Zone. I am not in the Pacific Time Zone. I realize in those time zones, well, mainly the Mountain and Pacific Time Zones, I should say, because it would be airing in the Central Time Zone. But I realize other than the main 2 time zones that I've mentioned, being Eastern and Central, it won't be airing anyplace else. So keep in mind, if I do another live watch party for next week, that I am watching it on the East Coast. So if you don't want any spoilers, then don't watch. But it looks like next week we're gonna see more shenanigans by Chucky, and he's gonna be more of an influence on Jake. And I'll be honest, I like this episode even more than I like the first one. It had its dark humor moments, but it just shows how sadistic Chucky is, especially since we see that flashback from when he was a kid, and he didn't give you know two craps about the razor being stuck in the apple that he ate. And he brought it back full circle because the woman who he went trick-or-treating at her house, well, she ends up biting it and giving a description of Chucky to Evan's mom. So we know that at some point they're going to confront Chucky, but of course Chucky is just going to be inanimate at every time unless they turn their back to him and he ends up hacking and slashing. So overall, I like this episode more than last week. If I were to rate this episode, best out of 5, then I'm gonna give this episode a 4.5 out of 5. Last week I gave last week's episode 2.5 out of 5 because I wasn't really impressed with some of the characters and everything, but this week, oh how quickly it turned, and the Chucky moments are the best moments of the series. I'm not gonna lie about that. The Chucky moments are absolutely the best moments you can have in this series because it's Chucky. That's all I gotta say. It's Chucky. And even though Chucky's this sadistic character and all he cares about is going out there and killing, you know, you like it when you see the character on screen. And he keeps egging on Jake in this episode, saying that, I'm the only friend you got, kid. So you're stuck with me. And he even says to Jake in this episode that, you know, it's been a week since his dad passed away because Chucky killed him. And at any time, he could have killed anyone inside the Wheeler household. He could have killed his uncle. He could have killed his aunt. He could have killed Junior. He could have even killed him. Chucky doesn't care. But overall, 4.5 out of 5. I just enjoyed it for what it was. So if you like Chucky, if you like Child's Play, if you like the first episode of Chucky, I think you'll like this episode of Chucky because it pokes fun at a few things too, which I did get a chuckle on. So that's going to conclude this review for Chucky episode 2. Give me something good to eat. Thank you all for joining me. Really appreciate it. If you like this video, please give this video a thumbs up. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. And again, thank you all for watching during the watch party.